So yesterday, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson had a boxing match that went for 8 rounds of misery, and that most people will now actively consider one of the worst fights of all time. On one side, you have a man who was once one of the scariest men on the planet, coming out of retirement to fight a 27-year-old window-licking, Rocky Horror Picture Show, muscled retard-looking TikTok influencer with more money than brain cells, who is also one of the most hated internet personalities on the entirety of the planet. So right off the bat, you've got a pretty bad mix of competitors, not to mention the fact that this entire situation taking place was a bad omen from the start. Mike Tyson nearly died before the first match took place, so the first match was cancelled because he wasn't medically cleared to fight because he had a bleeding vagina or something along those lines. So they decided to postpone the match, indefinitely cancel it, and then schedule it for yesterday. Leading up to this match, Mike Tyson allegedly nearly died a second time just training to get in the ring against a 27-year-old window-licking spastic. So the two of them got in the ring, and despite the fact that Jake Paul acted like he was a gangster NIP-esque serial killer who was going to not only kill the legend of Mike Tyson, but was also allegedly going to kill Tyson himself, ended up looking more like Scrappy Doo, or a child who'd just been beaten by their parents for drinking milk straight out of the carton. Now, Mike Tyson at least has an excuse for looking like a geriatric old man, because he is. He was wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin-esque knee brace and has taken more significant shots to the face than Riley Reid in his entire career. So at least he was justifiably shit in the ring. And even still, there were points where he looked more impressive than the 27-year-old the boxing industry is supposedly hedging their bets on to be the future world champion, the future boxing kingpin, if you will. Now, I didn't even pay to watch this match. I didn't watch it through Netflix. I didn't even pirate it. That's too much effort. I had a friend video share it to me on a video call, and I still feel like I deserve reparations for my time being wasted. My brother actually made a very good point about this fight as soon as it had finished. Boogie 2988 versus Wings of Redemption was a far more impressive and fun boxing match to watch, because at least instead of an old guy facing off against a window-licking retard, we had two fat retards who people love to hate beating the actual fuck out of each other in the middle of a ring that in most cases was probably built of titanium, because how in the blue fuck are wooden panels gonna hold these guys up on the canvas? We are so lucky that Boogie 2988 didn't get flatlined by Wings of Redemption, or the arena that fight was taking place in would no longer be standing. They would have leveled that arena like ground zeros. Anyway, that's all I have to say about the boxing fight that took place yesterday, because it was so fucking boring that there really isn't anything to say. In fact, the best thing to come out of this entire situation is seeing an image of Mike Tyson with arseless shorts in the backstage area. I don't know why that image exists, but it is very funny. The scariest man on the planet is now running tricks in the backstage area in the boxing arena after people have been doing their boxing fights. Actually, I do have one thing to say. I feel very bad for the people on the undercard who actually did put their physicality and their health on the line in order to effectively hold people's interests over for a fight that was so low impact, it genuinely looked similar to a dad and his son play fighting in the park. It's up to you to figure out which one of these two is the dad and which one of them is the son. Alright, what's the next news story that I have to tell you guys before I drink myself into a coma later tonight? Ah, yes. Ubisoft is being sued by 2 men. Why? Well, because Ubisoft allegedly doesn't want you to own things. Let me explain. Many, many years ago at this point, Ubisoft released a game that was called The Crew. On consoles, like a PlayStation 4, a PS3, an Xbox 360 and an Xbox One, and a PC, whatever that is. Sounds fucking gay. Anyway, it is an open world multiplayer racing game where you can, and I quote, collect cars from different countries, from different specifications and racing disciplines, and partake in exhilarating online races against your contemporaries in the online landscape, all of which is taking place in a large and inherently realistic depiction of the states of the United States of America. That sounds impressive. I do remember watching a zero punctuation video about this game when it released, and apparently it's not as good as it sounds, but it's also not necessarily a bad game. Although I wouldn't expect some British ponce like Yahtzee to understand car culture or understand the United States of America. He is a British ponce and a tea drinker, so why would I expect any legitimate, review of a game so American? Anyway, this game was at least popular enough to receive sequels in the future. So when, a couple of years ago, I believe, at this point, Ubisoft announced that they were shutting the servers for the original Crew game down, people got a little bit shitty at them. Because Ubisoft, in their infinite wisdom, know all of the ways to completely enrage the entire video game industry, so much to the point that they're one of the most proficient developers when it comes to receiving hateful comments on YouTube videos. They, being the dumb cunts that they are, decided to make the Crew an online-only experience that you had to pay to play. So, instead of being like a free live service game like Fortnite or like Apex Legends, they instead decided they would get audiences to pay for a game that there is no guarantee will exist many, many years into the future. Now, some people might be thinking, why would this be a big issue? Why is paying $60 or however much this game was worth when it released over a decade ago such a big issue to people now? If you wanted to play the game, you probably would have owned it back then. You probably would have bought it at launch or at some point in time throughout its, quite frankly, impressive lifespan. And the answer to that is that people aren't allowed to own things in the modern age. We heard Ubisoft pretty recently say gamers have to get used to not owning their products, and that is in itself the heart of the problem. People feel like the modern gaming industry is so money hungry that they expect you to pay for something that isn't necessarily guaranteed to be there any time that you go back to play it. Whether it be someone who used to enjoy the game and wants to have one last hurrah with it, or someone who actually wants to go back and play it now. Having a game removed from storefronts or having a game's online servers shut down isn't necessarily anything new. In fact, only a handful of months ago we saw one of the biggest failures in gaming history get shut down after only a week on the market. And while that game was garbage, and the people who bought it should really rethink what they are willing to spend their money on, in most cases I still feel bad for them, because you paid money for a product that you expect to be there when you go back to it, regardless of how long it takes for you to go back. Outside of software failure or hardware failure, you should be able to purchase a product and have it there whenever you want it to be there, as long as you purchased it through legal means. Like if I was to buy a DVD and it didn't work when I put it into the DVD player because it had a specific amount of times that I could watch it before it fucking explodes, I wouldn't really appreciate it. The video game industry is so interested in finding every way imaginable to ruin everyone's experience at any specific time, when they're not trying to make games that lecture the audience about how they're bad people because they exist and video game developers are so much more enlightened than they are. They're actively trying to remove the ability of audiences to play things in an uncensored and enjoyable manner. I would think that they would get the picture when games like Stellar Blade and games like The Last Descendant or whatever that shit's called, I really only know it because scrolling Reddit has showed me many images of the characters in very compromising positions. I forgot Tracer was lesbian because I've seen her taking pipes so much over the years on Reddit that it's almost impossible to believe that's actually an aspect of the lore. I don't play Overwatch, but I've seen more of the Overwatch characters than pretty much anything else in the darker parts of the internet. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the video game industry is so money hungry they will not allow people to even own the products that they buy, and this is a situation that just perfectly proves that. Two men have started trying to take Ubisoft to court for a lawsuit, suing them because they feel like the antics of Ubisoft violate some form of trade agreement somewhere. And do I think they're going to win? Absolutely not. I don't think these guys have it in the bag. I don't even think there's a possibility that these guys aren't going to get reamed in court. But do I want them to win? Yes, of course, stick it to Ubisoft. The video game industry is in such a sorry state, ironically just like the boxing industry, because they're so money hungry and because they're willing to effectively make stuff that people know is not going to be there in the future and expect gamers to just accept that. Why? Because you're not willing to make a single player... I've been playing Gran Turismo Sport recently. That game's online services have shut down because Gran Turismo 7 exists. I'm not going to buy Gran Turismo 7 just to play online. At least Gran Turismo Sport can be played in a single-player solo capacity without an online connection. Is there a lot of content? No, especially in comparison to other mainline Gran Turismos, but that's not the point. It would not be hard for Ubisoft to make this game single-player after they shut the servers off. In fact, I genuinely believe that outside of certain gaming experiences, like live service experiences, where the only way to play the game is online, and you're not expected to pay an entry fee to play, I think every game should have a single solo player experience tacked onto it, even if it's not the primary reason that people play the game. How annoyed would you be if you weren't allowed to watch sports on the TV because you didn't pay for it and you didn't have a consistent internet connection to fucking xvideos.com for some fucking reason? Because that's where the video game industry is going, let me tell you. Anyway, I've fucking got no more to say. I'm sorry, I'm done. I keep losing my train of thought because I keep feeling like the world is leaving people like me, visionaries, behind. You know? I just feel like no one listens to what I have to say anymore. I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm also speaking into the void because no one will say what needs to be said. Anyway, that's the 7:30 news report. So do all the stuff that the algorithm likes, I guess. And yeah, take it easy. All right, now I'm going to go drink myself into a coma after watching Jake Paul retard stumble his way through a boxing match.